The Super Nintendo Classic Edition is ready to come out any day now. Actually, September 29th. But since I've outsmarted everybody else and reviewed all the games on the SNES Mini a few days after it was even announced, I don't have anything left to say about it. I already jumped to the conclusion that next year Nintendo would make an N64 Classic Edition. I even went the extra mile and predicted what games would be on there if they do end up making one. However, after thinking about it, I realized that the N64 Mini can't possibly top the SNES Classic with so many games on the 64 having legal bullshit to deal with. Not to mention Rare and Nintendo not being buds anymore. So instead of the Nintendo 64 getting the classic treatment, why not the Game Boy instead? It'd not only make more sense, but it'd also be way cooler. And I'll tell you why. Plus features in which 30 games need to be included. Okay, Mom, you can start the intro now. So the biggest reason why Nintendo should make a Game Boy Classic Edition next instead of a Nintendo 64 is obviously the games. Sometimes the Game Boy is unfairly remembered as the handheld with watered-down console ports. Because of this, people often forget about just how many great games this handheld actually had. Before I talk about the games, first I'd rather go over some less obvious benefits about getting a Game Boy Mini over the 64 Mini. Come to think of it, could we even call it a Game Boy Mini? I mean, they better not make it smaller than the Game Boy Pocket, that's the perfect size right there. Anyway, I think it'd be badass if they released multiple colorways like the original Game Boy had. The sales would rip ass all over the place if they just kept these in stock with multiple colors. And if Nintendo insists on feeding scalpers, then they can make some of the colorways limited edition to keep everybody happy. Like I said, the Game Boy Pocket would be perfect to model it after, and they'd better include a backlight. And I really hope they include a wireless connection for multiplayer games, or at least a link cable for old time's sake. Whatever's cheaper for them to make, I don't care, just let us play two-player games. And it couldn't hurt if they included an HDMI port to play on the TV with a Switch controller or something, but even if it's just portable, that'd be fine. We do need two-player options though, so make that happen, Reggie-san. Just like all of our other videos, I know you're watching this. But let's talk about what games should be included if they ended up making these. First of all, they should include both Game Boy and Game Boy Color games together and just call it a Game Boy Classic Edition. Having the word color on the box will just make it seem dated as hell. I know the SNES Mini's only gonna have 21 games, but the Game Boy Classic would really need at least 30. And also, I'm gonna try to not include so many games that are just watered-down versions of NES or SNES games. Anyway, let's start with number 1, Super Mario Land. The very first Game Boy game ever released was a pretty solid effort. It can be beaten in about 15 to 20 minutes, even if you've never played it before. And since it wasn't made by Shigeru Miyamoto, there's kind of a lot about this game that feels out of place, even for Mario. But if you can play this and not have fun, then you're a bad human being, and I want to fight you. Sure, I'll get my ass kicked, but god damn it, I'll try. Number 2, Super Mario Land 2. While still weird for a Mario game, Super Mario Land 2 was made when developers were more familiar with the Game Boy's hardware, and as good as its predecessor was, things are even better here. Number 3, Tetris or Tetris DX. Tetris is the reason why people bought the original Game Boy in the first place, but Tetris DX is better, so which game should be on here? If it were up to me, I'd choose the original version that was the other first game made for the console, because the whole idea behind a classic edition in the first place is nostalgia over anything else. And for people that don't have nostalgia attached to it, it'd still be pretty cool to give them kind of a history lesson, for lack of a better term. Number 4, the first generation of Pokemon. Look, I have no idea on how the best way to go about this is. You don't want to waste 3 spaces on essentially the same game, and you don't want to have different Game Boy Classics out there with red, blue, and yellow versions separated. Things get kinda complicated. While you could just include all 3 games on here, it'd still feel a little weird and discourage trading with friends like how you're supposed to. So what I'd propose is giving players the option to choose whether they wanted to play red, blue, or yellow. Or maybe just between red and blue while giving yellow as a bonus game regardless. Because who wouldn't pick yellow? And if everybody chooses yellow, then who's gonna be the sorry schmuck to pick red or blue to help everybody complete the Pokédex? All I know is that Pokemon being on here is essential, so Nintendo would have to figure something out, and this is the best that I could do. Number 5, Pokemon second generation. Just copy and paste everything I said about the first generation here. Number 6, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. Cause puzzle games are perfect for portable consoles, you ding-dong. Number 7, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. Another obvious essential, this is a fairly underrated Zelda game that's better than the original, but not quite as good as A Link to the Past. Older Zelda games, mainly just the first 2, can be intimidating to get into if you're not nostalgically attached to them due to all the cryptic bullshit you need to look up online. Thankfully, none of that exists in Link's Awakening, except for maybe all the item trading required to finish the game. Numbers 8 and 9, The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons. To be honest, these are the only 2 games in the Zelda series that I haven't finished, but from what I've played, they're very similar to Link's Awakening with plenty of improvements. Unlike Pokemon Red, Blue, Gold, and Silver, these are 2 separate games and deserve their own spaces on the list, so suck it. I'm sorry, I don't know why I told you to suck it. There really was no reason for that. Number 10, Donkey Kong. The Game Boy version of Donkey Kong starts off seeming like a port of the arcade, but after playing through the first few stages, you'll learn that there's way more to this game than meets the eye. Even my fat ass didn't know what this game was until it was released on the eShop for the 3DS. This version takes the same controls and mechanics of the original Donkey Kong, but adds a poop load of puzzle-based stages for you to figure out. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy would catch many people off guard with how good it is. Numbers 11 and 12. Kirby's Dream Land 1 and 2. Because Kirby sure does suck. Honestly, do you need me to explain why these games need to be included? The first game's Kirby's World debut, and the second game is when HAL Laboratories got their heads out of their buttholes and gave Kirby his copy ability from his NES adventure. These games sure are a good time. Number 13. Kirby's Pinball. Fuck you, I like Kirby, and a game like this is perfect for something that's supposed to be portable. Seriously, for a pinball game, this has a lot of depth. It's definitely cuter than my bitch ass. Number 14. Metroid 2. This is probably one of the best games for the Game Boy, and somehow brings a creepy and lonely Samus adventure to a system that lacks power. I guess Nintendo just knew how to make the most of it. Plus, by 1991, N-Dog got a lot better at making games, so it makes sense for a sequel on a graphically inferior system to be able to surpass its NES predecessor. At least that's my less than humble opinion. Numbers 15, 16, and 17. Wario Lands 1, 2, and 3. When Wario debuted as a villain in Super Mario Land 2, Nintendo decided to take that weird un-Mario style of gameplay and just give it to this asshole. And after tweaking a few things here and there, Nintendo liked it so much that they made 3 games for it. And they're all good, so why not include them? Number 18. Dr. Mario. Puzzle games may not be for most people, but for the sake of nostalgia and the fact that these types of games are great for playing on the go, and that this game's just great anyway, why not let it slide right in? Number 19. Pokemon Pinball. Don't talk shit about Pokemon Pinball till you actually play it. This game's very addictive, and there's a lot more to it than you'd think. But if you haven't played it, then it's kinda hard to explain why it's so good. Just trust me and let Reggie-san put it on there. I know you're still watching. Number 20. Kid Icarus. This is the only true sequel to the original Kid Icarus on the NES because it was made with the same game engine as Metroid and, well, Metroid's better. I know there's a Kid Icarus game on the 3DS, but that's a complete reboot as far as gameplay's concerned. So sorry, but it doesn't count. Despite not being as good or popular as Metroid, Kid Icarus is still a great time if you're up for a challenge. Number 21. Kirby's Block Ball. Haha, gotcha, there's another Kirby game. Have you ever played Breakout? Well, this is pretty much the same thing, except it's cuter, more fun, less robotic, and there's actually an ending. Not that I have anything against high-score games with no end in sight, though. I mean, I did include Tetris after all. Number 22. Wario Blast. This is basically a Bomberman game. In fact, it actually is one with Wario in it. I guess they wanted to increase awareness for Bomberman, but you can have a great time with this, especially if 2 players can be a thing for the Game Boy Classic. And since this was made by Hudson, I'll use this as a way to transition into other third-party games for the list. Number 23. Metal Gear Solid. This isn't a port of the PS1 game with the same name. In fact, this is officially non-canon to the rest of the series and is officially known as Metal Gear Ghost Babel outside of North America. And, you know, maybe outside of Europe too, I don't know. It's not like I could look that up or anything. And since the game's original title not having Solid in it, it plays a lot like Metal Gear 2 with a few elements from Metal Gear Solid included. And with a story as deep and fantastic as this, it'd be a great way to add variety to the lineup. Number 24. Resident Evil Gaiden. Another non-canon entry for a popular series, Resident Evil Gaiden is fucking weird. The shooting is odd, but it works, and the graphics are actually surprisingly good, with super creepy music. Much like Metal Gear Ghost Babel, this would add much needed variety to the lineup. Plus, nobody's really played this, so it'd be new for most people. I did a slightly more detailed review of this game that I'll leave in the description below. Number 25. Shantae. Being released in 2002, this was probably the last great game made for the Game Boy Color, and it fully utilizes the hardware's capabilities. I know how much Nintendo seems to love scalpers, but this game's expensive as hell on eBay. So they'd better put this on here, or I'll do nothing at all about it because I can't. Number 26. Mega Man 5. Mega Man's 1 through 4 on the Game Boy are interesting and slightly different, yet still watered down ports of their console counterparts with recycled bosses. If you can't get enough classic 8-bit Mega Man despite how much is actually out there, then you'll love this game, and it's really well made since Capcom had the Mega Man formula pretty much figured out at this point. Plus, much like Shantae, it's also expensive as poop on eBay, so it'd be cool for people to actually be able to play it. And yes, I know Mega Man 5 and Shantae are on the eShop, but it'd still be cool to include it here, so frig off, you big gasshole. Number 27. Kidd Dracula. I know I'm adding another platformer to a list that's already full of them, but this game's as fun as it is cute, with unique enough mechanics to help it stand out from other games of the same genre. Number 28. Operation C. Yet another game for the list that need 2 players. Operation C is basically a watered-down version of Contra for the Game Boy. I know I said I'd leave ports out, but this one's really good, and there's some minor differences making it worthwhile. Number 29. Final Fantasy Legend 3. Even though portable gaming is best left to things like puzzle games, this list needed a little more variety, specifically some non-Pokemon RPGs. And I thought Final Fantasy Legends 1 and 2 sucked, but Final Fantasy Legend 3 is a little more bearable as far as not requiring obscene amounts of grinding. But for premium RPG action, you're gonna want number 30. Dragon Warriors 1 and 2. I guess this can be considered 31 games, but it's on one cartridge, and plus, Nintendo can act like it's a bonus game, which it really is. Dragon Quest is only recently getting more popular outside of Japan, but these two are where the series begins, so it'd be a great way to add value to the Game Boy Classic while maybe introducing the series to new people. And hopefully to a lot of new people if Nintendo stops feeding scalpers by making limited quantities of Classic Edition consoles. I don't know why they consciously do this, but my guess would be that Nintendo makes Classic Edition consoles to get people talking about them and how their products are always selling out. It creates the aura that they're heavily in demand, thus increasing the perceived value of their products in people's minds. And I guess if they sell out of the Classic Edition consoles, then people would perceive the Switch to be more valuable, which is where the real money's at, to be completely honest. And also because I suppose Nintendo doesn't want to be the company known for their plug-and-play consoles. Not that I agree with this, leaving money on the table seems like bad business to me. But as far as the Game Boy's concerned, it's an immensely popular handheld console that's been around for 14 years, so there's bound to be more than 30 good games. So of course I either left out or straight up forgot some awesome stuff. So let me know how much of an ass burglar I am in the comments below if I forgot something you loved. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks for watching. My mom calls me Cameron, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.